Listen, I just wanted to say that pretty much the only people who have done anything for the African American community since the abolition of slavery, at least, is the African American community. I mean, it wasn't the cops that were out there marching for civil rights. The cops don't serve black communities the way they do other communities. And, for this guy to come out there and say that they're not going to hold police accountable when they murder people, they're not going to give any consequences for that. But if you protest against that, then they're going to hold you accountable, and they're going to blame you for when people get angry at the cops and fight back against this oppression. I mean, this kind of thing is just making me so angry I can't even describe it to you. I mean, this is just insane. It's bullshit. And these people are being very, very irresponsible.
Yeah, I'll tell you, these spokesmen from these heads of the Policemen Benevolence Association, I think the Sergeants Association too, the Police Sergeants Benevolent Association. I mean, it is, I think they're making a huge mistake. I mean, just because this is just strictly a political calculation for them, and I think they're making a huge mistake. I really do. I really think this is far worse, I think, for community and police relations, frankly, because this is people saying, like, these guys, they're not even making a pretense that they're a professional force. They're not even they're lodging threats against the mayor, against the city, saying if you're going to even you're going to complain about the lack of oversight that we have in these situations, then we are threatening you. I mean, that I think is very
they're acting like a gang.
Yeah, it's true.
And that guy McCullough, he knew that woman was lying before she even testified. He knew the whole time.
I'm going to talk about that story in a bit, Nate. You're absolutely right. I got that story right in front of me.
Well, thanks, guys.
Appreciate the call. Let's take one more phone call.
I was just going to say, getting to the other point Nate was making, was, when this happened to these two police officers, you saw all these activists and members, prominent members of different organizations within the black community come out and saying, this is horrible, this is not just, this is disgusting, we're not anti-police, we're anti-police brutality. They speak out for these senseless deaths, saying they're wrong. But then on the flip side, when Eric Garner's murdered, you see these pro-police people going out, the cop who killed Eric Garner himself, waving at the camera, smiling, people saying, oh, it was justified. Eric Garner shouldn't have been a petty criminal if he didn't want to die. Could you imagine if the roles were reversed? Could you imagine the situation? Black people have to apologize for when a cop gets killed, and they want black people to apologize when a cop kills a black man. It's just insane.
I noticed, and I agree with this, it was great that some Yankees players have offered to pay college tuitions for the children of these murdered police, and that's great. I commend that. And I also thought, Eric Garner has 6 kids. Like, it would be great if the offer was extended to that family as well.
Has anyone on Fox News mentioned 2 Clive and Bundy ranchers, lunatics killing cops in Nevada?
Yeah, we talked about that on this show, but it wasn't covered like it was. I mean, the right-wing media completely ignored it pretty much. Right. And those guys were actually they were there at the Clive and Bundy Ranch.
Right.
They were actually a part of that movement.
Right. They're not one, we're not even talking about one guy in 50,000 marching somewhere, or 100,000 or 1 million that are marching across the country at a given point. We're talking they were there of the 100 people. The language coming out of so many of these police forces is chilling. Think about the responses from Missouri and Ohio giving coded warnings about protecting stadia, and this New York wartime police force, blood in the mayor's office talk. What is even a wartime police force?
Well, actually, ironically, what it means, from what I could glean, was that they're sort of saying they're going to do less. They're basically saying unless, like, their
whole thing is we're going to protect ourselves, and so we're not going to go out of our way.
Right. And that could have some really terrible, I don't know what that means. Like, one of the things NYPD has actually been pretty good on in the last, under this Bloomberg, and I think continuing, is like monitoring domestic violence situations as an example. They've had a great record on that. I don't know if that means like, well, I don't know if it's absolutely necessary for us to monitor this.
Well, their whole thing is basically a slowdown. Like you got to send 2 cars,
right.
you got to send, et cetera, et cetera.